Agenda item 5, public hearings. 5A is 300 Piedmont Avenue. It's a request for a conditional use permit to operate a religious facility in the single-family residential zoning district per section 1296, 60C1 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Staff report, please.
Thank you and good evening. The application is for a conditional use permit to operate a religious facility at the former Crestmore High School site, which is located within the R1 zoning district. The commission is probably familiar with the site. It's accessed from Cortland Drive from the north and Piedmont Avenue from the south. The athletic fields are well used for recreational purposes, including for AYSO soccer. The former school buildings are used for a variety of uses. The most prevalent use there is the Peninsula High School, which is a small continuation high school. Also of note is the San Bruno Chinese Church is located across the street at 250 Cortland. Through the whole site, including the road that goes through it, is owned by the San Mateo Union High School District. And so they lease out different portions of the site for different purposes. There are 3 parking lots on the site with a total of 220 spaces. The applicant is proposing to hold church services in the former high school theater building. So if you're familiar with the campus, that's in the northernmost building, basically adjacent to the gym. They're also proposing some secondary uses, which I'll mention as well and are detailed in your staff report. But the church services and Sunday school would be held on Sundays from 11 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. They expect approximately 325 people to attend those services based on their attendance at their previous location. And those other related uses that I was mentioning would be band practice for just a few people, about 4 to 7, 1 weeknight per week, as well as their high school group would be proposed to meet 1 night per week as well in one of the classroom buildings. They are not proposing any physical changes to the site. The theater right now is a large open area, and they propose to set up chairs for their services. The project is not exempt for review under CEQA, under the California Environmental Quality Act, so staff has prepared an initial study for the project. We hired an outside transportation consultant to review the traffic and parking aspects of the project. The findings of the initial study, the finding is that the project could not have a significant effect on the environment, so a negative declaration has been prepared and is presented to the Planning Commission tonight for your consideration. On that note, we would like to add, staff would like to add a finding of fact, number 4, just saying that the negative declaration has been prepared in accordance with the CEQA guidelines. And I would like to point out that no mitigation measures are required for this project. So as you know, there's a mitigated negative declaration, and then there's a just plain negative declaration, and this one is the negative declaration. And so I'd like to turn now to public comments, because we did receive some comments from the neighborhood that I'd like to point out for your consideration. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting in July. They received the address list from staff, and it included the full 500-foot area, so larger even than the legal noticing around the neighborhood. They had one neighbor that attended the meeting that night, and she supported the project. Staff was present. Staff then sent a courtesy notice and the required legal notice to all property owners within 500 feet. We received comments from 6 people. That information is included in your staff. But I just wanted to point out some highlights or some things for you to think about tonight. 4 people expressed concerns about the traffic in the area, especially during the existing soccer schedule. Several people noted that people drive quickly through the neighborhood and don't always comply with the traffic laws. So staff has reviewed these concerns very closely and included them into our analysis in the staff report. The transportation consultant analyzed the traffic to see if there's sufficient capacity for the project as proposed. The consultant did conclude that there is capacity in that area to accommodate the project, and the total number of vehicle trips would be reasonable for the type of street that is located there. Additionally, the San Bruno Chinese Church, which is located across the street, and this proposed project They would have staggered services, which would reduce the potential for traffic congestion going in and out of the neighborhood. So as I noted before, a portion of the road that goes through the site, kind of the main section that goes through the old high school, is owned by the school district. So the city is limited about how we can address those neighborhood concerns directly, but we have considered all of the options available to us to address those concerns. Specifically, we spoke to several other departments about how we can work together to mitigate some of those issues. I'm hearing a lot of static. Can the Planning Commission still hear me okay? Okay, then I'll continue. Specifically, we spoke with the engineering staff, and they will be looking at the sections of Cortland and Piedmont. Wow, great, thank you. Now am I okay? Okay. So there are public road sections on Cortland from the north and Piedmont from the south. And so our traffic engineer will be looking at those sections to see if traffic calming measures would be appropriate in those locations. It's already on the list. And so the list is kind of a first come, first served basis, but it is already on there. We discussed the issue with the police commander, and she has notified the day shift supervisor for Sundays about potential issues in the neighborhood, and so they will have greater awareness of any traffic concerns. They are not allowed to enforce the minor infractions on the private road, but they will, of course, enforce on the public streets. In addition, we've been in contact with recreation staff, and they will extend that contact out to the AYSO soccer representatives and ask them to do some outreach to their membership and ask them to drive carefully through the neighborhood and to be respectful of the neighbors there. In combination, staff believes that these measures will help address the concerns that are present there. Additionally, the applicant will be required to do outreach to their own members about traffic safety on a regular basis, and that is included as a condition of approval. And so I'd like to turn now to our analysis of the parking. There are 3 lots on the site, as shown. It's Exhibit A on page 8 of your staff report. The 3 lots are shown there, and then the details are given in the staff report with the numbers. But the traffic consultant, as well as staff, has noticed that the AYSO soccer participants tend to park very close to the fields, a lot of times along the street or in the parking spaces that are closest there to the fields. The traffic parking analysis does indicate that they do need some parking spaces in the lot in order to have enough capacity for them. So staff has included condition of approval number 6, which requires the applicant to leave the first row of parking lot number 1 available for the soccer families. And so they would have the kind of first dibs on that row of parking that's closest to the athletic fields. The church members would then be required to park primarily in lots 2 and 3, but they could also use the second and third row of parking lot number 1. So that parking lot number 1 would be the closest row for soccer, and then the 2 subsequent rows would be available for church members. In the event of soccer tournaments or other high demand uses, the church would be able to use the basketball courts, which are also labeled there on the exhibit, for overflow parking, and that's described in condition of approval number 8. They would be required to have an attendant to make sure that that parking is safely used and there's good circulation in and out of that parking lot. In combination, our analysis shows that these locations will provide enough parking for the proposed use. So staff does recommend that the Planning Commission approve the project this evening. So we would recommend to you that the Planning Commission certify the negative declaration as being prepared in compliance with the CEQA guidelines. And then we would also recommend that you approve the project based on findings of fact 1 through 4, including the new finding that we asked you to consider, and subject to conditions of approval 1 through 8. And I would be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff?
Through the chair.
Commissioner Marshall.
The parking study, what time of year was that done? Was that done during the heat of the soccer season?
It was done during a tournament in August. So there was a soccer tournament going on at the time, so, as well as services at the San Bruno Chinese church.
Well, the Chinese church has their own parking lot, so that's not really an issue. But the
Excuse
Mike?
me. Excuse me. I'd like to ask the public to remain quiet during the proceedings, and you'll have a chance to speak at the podium shortly. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Commissioner.
My concern is, my experience going up there during soccer times, I've been going up there for years, my kids are older now, but that parking lot 1 is completely full, along with the roads from parking lot 1 all the way down to the football field or soccer field now. And if this service is only on Sundays, and the soccer is basically only on Saturdays and Sundays, I don't think that, I'd have to argue with that parking survey. And I'd like to see if it's possible to make that basketball courts mandatory parking lot for the church only, and make it available at all times, not just for overflow. I don't see them using, a couple of years ago I went to high school up there, and at the long walk from parking lot 3 down to that auditorium, I don't see, with the weather up there, I don't see people parking in parking lot 2 and 3. It's just, realistically, in reality, it's not going to happen. And I think the only way to make this thing work with the parking is to make that basketball court a full-time parking lot signed with church parking only, and I just don't see the traffic. I think the streets can handle it. And obviously, the high school is there. If they build houses, they're going to have more cars than that. But it's not going to be ideal for the neighbors, but the streets can handle it. But that parking it won't work, in my opinion.
I think that's a reasonable recommendation. I don't see any obstacles to doing that. We did receive comments from one neighbor about using the basketball courts, but he did not object to using it he uses it for recreational purposes, but he did not object to using it for the church to use it for parking during their services. So I don't see any reason why it couldn't be used regularly.
I believe right next to the basketball court, which is the old tennis courts, they used to park the buses there. I don't think they park them there anymore. So, I mean, that's also available for parking.
My understanding, and we could certainly confirm, I have had some discussion with staff from the district, but they seem to use what used to be the tennis courts as kind of their parking and storage facility. So to my knowledge, it's not available. The district has specifically authorized the applicant to use the basketball courts, but there is significant capacity on the basketball courts for additional parking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have questions? All right, thank you very much for your presentation. I'll open the public hearing, and I'd like to ask the applicant to come forward first and make any comments you wish on your application. And please give your name and street name for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Robert Hall, and I'm one of the pastors at CPC. This is Charlie Royce, our business administrator for the church, and Frank Cutter is on our Board of Elders and also a San Bruno resident, so he's here on their behalf. They actually also have a meeting tonight. So CPC is about a 43-year-old church, primarily, that's been focused in the city of Foster City. We have a great campus and a great building there, and a really great church. And about 4 years ago, we started thinking of how can a lot of our people at CPC come from all the way as far north as San Francisco and as far south as Redwood City. And so we started planning how can we kind of put our church into the community to reach more of our people who are really tired of driving all the way down to Foster City, to be quite honest. And so we started looking at possible locations. We found a great venue at Mills High School about almost 3 years ago now, and we've been meeting there ever since. And we always knew that was going to be a temporary location for us because we knew that they were going to one day tear down that auditorium, which they are doing currently, and rebuild one. And we've had a great relationship with the city of Millbrae and with the San Mateo Unified High School District. And so as we began looking for a more permanent location, we've looked all over, really, in Burlingame and Millbrae and in San Bruno. And after a lot of searching, we finally came upon the Crestmore location. Really thought it'd be a fantastic place for a church. So we started the process of talking with the San Mateo High School District. Honestly, we had no idea that we were going to be a part of a conditional use permit. I didn't even know what a CUP was then. I do now. And so we're here. We're very much looking forward to being part of the city of San Bruno. One of the programs we do at our church is called Love Works, where we shut our doors on a Sunday, send all of our volunteers in the community to serve at different schools and different other nonprofits and give our time and our money. And it's been a fabulous program. We've done a lot of work at elementary schools especially. We've already been talking and contacted John Muir as well as some other elementary schools about how we can serve those schools with kind of no strings attached, and so we're looking forward to doing that. So that's the short and sweet part for me. Thank you for considering our CUP application.
Thank you. Are there any commission questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, I thank you again. And if there are any other members of the public who would like to speak on this, please come to the podium. Give your name and street name for the record, if you would, please.
Hey, good evening. My name is Michael Angelich. I'm at 321 Cortlandt. I have an issue with the extra traffic. I don't know when Hexagon Transportation made their study, but I went up there last Saturday, and the traffic was already overflowed into the basketball parking lot. Where my main concern lies is the people who are using the street now on Saturdays and Sundays, they drive way too fast, they're always on their damn cell phones, and they're gonna hit one of the little kids or the elderly people on our street. And that's just wrong. I've tried to talk to the cops about it. The San Bruno Police doesn't want to seem to be interested in the matter. And I'm gonna put you, sir, on notice as being the city attorney, that when something happens, you guys are aware of it and you did nothing to it. So, you know, I'm really bent. I'm not trying to prevent these guys from coming up there, but this is an issue that really hits me hard here. And I agree with Bob over here, because he said he's been there, and it's already overflowed. Thank you.
Thank you.
As an aside, I thought the church was going to put up some new basketball nets as a condition also.
Hi, I'm Novella Jefferson, and I live at 360 Cortlandt Drive. And I have an issue with the parking. There is no place for the homeowners to park or even to get in your driveway when the soccer is going on. I mean, there's the school parking, kids are parking as far as down the street for the school. There's the apartment parking, because they're working on the apartment. The people have no place to park. So they park on Cortlandt Drive. Then the soccer, then the church. So there's no place for the taxpayers to park in front of their own house. And I have an issue with that. And I don't think no engineer could tell me since they don't live there, so they don't know. And I go through that every day, especially on soccer. It's hard to even get in your driveway or even to get out. So, you know, I have an issue with the parking. There's just, you know, too many cars. Thank you.
Could I ask you a question? I have to say I don't live in the area. I don't understand it the way you do. But I see you and another gentleman here. Can you tell me why other residents aren't here besides you?
I know, well, you know, I spoke to them and everyone asked me. Some of the people said that they had something to do and one was on vacation and they wanted me to come and listen to what was, you know, going to be told. But they mostly against it. I don't know, I guess it's a nice day outside, so.
It is.
So they decided not to come, but they are very concerned. And I'm very concerned about when my husband gets home, he can't even, hardly could get in the driveway or someone is parked in front of the house. And he gets really upset about that.
Thank you again. Are there any other members of the public? Please give your name and your street name for the record.
My name is Andrew Wu, and I'm the senior pastor of the San Bruno Chinese Church, 250 Cortlandt Drive. I understand the concerns of the residents because when I drive up there, I often see that type of problem happening with the traffic. And also I see how well the residents have been keeping their houses. And I know that they really appreciate that area. But today I'm here, I want to talk a little bit about the positive impact a church can have in a community. I would like to share that the existence of a church is more than just to hold religious services, but it is the purpose of the church is to reach out and to serve the community. Less than 2 weeks ago, our community remembered the anniversary of the San Bruno gas line explosion. On that fateful afternoon, Highland Church opened its door immediately and provided a place of refreshment for the first responder. And that evening, the clergy, they were in the community center, reaching out and counseling, providing counseling service to the affected community. And Pastor David Smith of Highland Church and I were involved with the long-term recovery committee. And in this committee, in the initial stage, there were representatives come from relief agency representing the Catholics, the Lutherans, Presbyterians, Southern Baptists, LDS, Salvation Armies, and others. And all these relief agencies came because of the local churches. Presbyterian because of the Bethany Presbyterian, Lutheran because of Peace Lutheran, and Southern Baptist because of our church, and also LDS is at the bottom of hill, and of course the Catholic with St. Robert's. As a matter of fact, the Peace Lutheran Church was gracious, opened their facilities for many meetings for the Red Cross to use their facilities. And at the time, the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief have made arrangement with our church to use our facilities as a base camp to bring in resources and volunteers in case there is need at the explosion site. And these are the works that are going on behind the churches that most people do not see. And yet these are the hidden resources that can be helpful to the community. I often use the Crestmore Drive to access Skyline Boulevard, and every time I drive on it, I remind myself that the San Andreas fault line is just a few feet away. And we know that if it happened, that the San Bruno is in the very violent and the violent zones. And I do believe if that occasion do arrive, and of course we do not wish that it comes, that the churches will rise up much like the gas line explosion and to extend help to the community. Because of our relationship and connection with our denomination and with various national relief agencies, and it will be a great help to the residents of the neighborhood. And we can use the expertise from our church membership to provide assistance to those in need. For example, our church, we have a couple chaplains, including a chaplain for the FBI, and they are immediately making themselves available to counsel to provide counseling service to the neighbors. And I believe the Central Peninsula Church with the pastoral team and 300 plus strong congregation, that they, with all their expertise within the church, will strengthen the resources that we have for our community. As a result, from this perspective, I welcome the Central Peninsula Church to San Bruno using the facilities of Crestmore School. And there are valid issues that are expressed here, like traffic congestion. People do speed up the hill. As a matter of fact, today when I go up, because of this, I caught myself speeding up the hill as well. And not only I'm going to slow down, I'm going to tell my congregation, watch your speed and respect the neighbors. And at our church, with our driveway, we have some of the parents, they park their cars on the driveway as if they own it. You know, these are valid issues, and they must be addressed. And for me, I hope to work with Pastor Rob Hall and the leadership team from CPC to make sure that when there's problems happen, that it is not from either of our churches. And I hope doing so that the Crestmore this neighborhood will be the finest neighborhood of the city of San Bruno.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak on this item? Okay. Without objection, I'll close the public hearing, bring the matter back to the commissioner for discussion.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Marshall.
Although I'm not against churches in neighborhoods at all, I am I gotta look at this carefully. Living next to a church myself, a church that moved into a neighborhood, not a neighborhood that moved next to a church, and there's a big difference there. We have to be concerned with the neighbors and the parking and the traffic. Like I said, I think it can handle the traffic there. It was a school at one time, and the kids that went to school drove faster than most of the people there, and I think we can get around the traffic part of it. It's not good now, and I don't think it's gonna get any better or worse. But the parking is a big thing, and parking is a big thing. Those developments were built, people had 1 car, 2 cars. Now most houses have 3, 4, 5 cars, and so parking with no church or no athletic fields is terrible in this town. So what I'd like to make a proposal is on the conditions approval 6, to rewrite it and strike, change it a little bit and just have it read, the parking management strategy shall prohibit parking in parking lot 1 adjacent to the athletic fields. And that this is for use for people in the athletic field only. And on number 8, at all times, the applicant shall direct church members to the basketball courts. There's also another parking lot that's left off this diagram on Exhibit A. If you go just below where it says classrooms, there is a small parking lot there that is real close to where they want to put their Sunday school and their and the other part of their thing. And that's used with the daycares now, I believe, during the weekend. So I'm sure it's open during the weekends, and so maybe their staff, and that could be for staff parking on Sundays for the church. I think you could fit probably about a dozen cars in there. The old wood shop, that's by the old wood shop room in the school. And if the church wants to move into a neighborhood, they should be the ones inconvenienced with the further parking with the parking lot 2 and 3. And the basketball court only.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Chase.
First, I'd like to let staff know that the staff report was extremely well written. That's why I didn't have very many questions. I really didn't even have to open it up because it was very thorough. In regards to what Commissioner Marshall said, I coached AYSO soccer for a number of years. My daughter played up there. I coached volleyball for St. Roberts. And at the time, you'd have AYSO games, you'd have either basketball games or maybe volleyball games going on up there. And I understand the congestion, the traffic, the parking, and all that. Personally, I think it can handle all of it. The issue is, to me, whether or not you're going to allow parking lot 1 to only have the 1 row as it's written right now, or as Commissioner Marshall is stating, maybe have it none. To me, maybe the medium or the best case scenario would be the first 2 rows are only for soccer. I mean, I've been up there many, many times, as probably a lot of us have, and even during a soccer game, that lot is not completely filled up. Most of the time, people are parked on the side of the road, right opposite of the field, which technically is not even a parking lot. It's, just part of a field that goes up against the fence. I've seen the folks drive down the hill, basically like almost out of control. And I feel for the neighbors because I would not wish to have to deal with that on a, weekend basis. But having said that, I think that with, working closely with the church, with, whatever other departments we need to work with, I think it can work out just fine. But it's not going to be, it's not going to be a walk in the park in the beginning, but, a lot of times it isn't. But I think it would be a big asset to the community. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I'm sorry, the public hearing is closed unless the commissioner...
But he should have, I have to comment on what he said, on what Kevin Chase said.
That's correct. If you would like to, maybe afterwards there'll be an opening,
There's, I'm sorry, the gentleman left. I was about to say if a commissioner wants to ask a question of the applicant or a previous speaker, that's permissible.
If the citizen would like to, if you would like to ask me a question or address something I said, I have no problem with
Okay,
it.
please, could you come to the podium though, because we don't have audience microphones. Thank you.
This isn't open.
And give you,
So
give,
you indicated that the parking lot at the soccer is not full. My granddaughter plays soccer there, and it is packed. So now let me ask you this question. Why is the people parked all over Cortland Drive if the parking lot is not full?
You know, I couldn't answer for all the
So then maybe you
people.
should have someone to direct the traffic to the parking lot, because everybody is parked on Cortland Drive, and there is no place for them to park. Everybody walking down the hill.
Well, I
So-
can't address how everybody's thinking, but I know
So
when I
are
coached,
you-
I know when
are
I coached
you-
and I know when I played up there.
Oh, that's when you played, but we're talking about now.
Okay. I guess I have no.
Yeah, we're talking about now. That's in the past.
No, we're not talking about that
That's
far
in
in
the
the past,
past.
though. We're
And
talking a
then-
couple years
Excuse me.
removed.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
That was a good intention to have members of the public come up again and comment, but I do want to say that the public hearing is not a debate. It's not scheduled to be a debate, and so once the public has had an opportunity to make their comments, you can make some comments now, but we're not going to engage in a back and forth cross-examination
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So if you have more comments to make, be our guest, because the chair has reopened it, but we're not going to get back and forth into a debate on this.
Yeah, well, I was just answering what he said, and I think we should concentrate on now and
Right.
not in the past.
I understand, but it's not a debate, so you've made your comment, the
Yeah.
commissioner's made his comment.
hey, thank you, Ms. Jefferson. I think your position has been well stated.
Through the chair.
All right, Commissioner Biassiatti.
Aaron, do you have any information on that apartment building on Whitman that's being remodeled? Is there any time frame for that project to be wrapped up?
Laura may actually know that better than I do, but I know that it's going to take probably about, I would say a little bit over a year. They're not only remodeling the units inside and moving people around as they remodel them, but they're also doing the facade of the building.
Right.
So right now you see all the scaffolding up and everything there. That's kind of the intensive work that's going on right now. Then it's going to move on to remodeling the units inside.
So although there is an impact with parking, it is a temporary situation that at some point will be resolved.
Absolutely.
Okay. I do have a question for the folks from the church. The traffic report says they're going to generate 336 trips on an average. What is your congregation? What is the population of your congregation? How many folks do come to your church?
Whoever's going to answer, could you move to the podium, please, and give your name for the record?
I'm Charlie Royce, the business manager for the church, and at present, we have about 341 adults coming to church with about 60 children, and that's the population that we expect to have when we open.
Okay. And the other question or point that I'd like to bring up is there is access to this property from the other side. What is it, Piedmont Avenue? You know, we don't have to expect all of these cars to go on Cortland, thank you. You know, maybe we can, you know, as an addition to this, we can ask your congregation if perhaps they can access the property from the other side to relieve some of this pressure from the folks on Cortland. You know, they've got the apartment building that they're dealing with, they've got the soccer they're dealing with. You know, maybe if we can stipulate somehow that your congregation would please, because it is even closer to the parking that's being assigned to you. Maybe if they could approach from that side, it might relieve some of the stress from the neighbors.
I'd like to make a comment. This hasn't been done in a long time, but it is possible to continue an item on the agenda rather than vote on it. And it's beginning to look, at least to me, like there's a lot of technical homework that could be done by staff together with the church to try to resolve the parking issue and possibly address some of the traffic. I'm not proposing that, I'm just putting it out there so you don't think you have to go yes or no. There is a middle ground here. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Chase.
So if the congregation has 341 adults, do all of them go to church? I mean, realistically, do they all attend church? I mean, I belong to St. Robert's, and there's a larger community of 341, and I can guarantee you that they don't all go to church. So perhaps maybe that figure is not, it's real, but maybe it's not reality as far as who's attending on a weekly basis. If you got 100%, well, heck, God bless you, because you're doing way good.
Yeah. Yeah, if I can just address that concern, like for example, this past Sunday, we're meeting temporarily at the Skyline College, a theater, and this past Sunday we count, we count our folks and our kids, and we only had 303 people, and that included kids. So our attendance fluctuates, 340 adults plus kids, that's a very generous figure when, when school starts and everyone comes back, but our attendance fluctuates. And that's like the peak. That would be the peak, so.
And to continue that, 300, if that's adults, I mean, it's like, a lot of them are spouses, I would assume. So it's not as if there's gonna be 340 additional cars. I mean, should I assume that that would be a fairly correct statement? That you could maybe half that, perhaps, or maybe even a little bit more, So I'm kind of thinking that these figures are, well, they might be real figures, but in reality, you gotta really look at it.
Kevin, even add on to, if I may, if the church is full out on Sunday, how many can fit in that room? Let's say you have a great day, how many can actually fit in there?
At 300 Piedmont?
Yes.
Through the chair? I think you're asking what's the occupancy
Yeah.
for the room? Thank you.
Charlie would know that. 390.
So the most you can have is, so if you guys grow and double and triple or in size, the most you could fit in that room is 390 plus the Sunday school upstairs.
Yeah. And then just to address more parking concerns, currently, since day one, we have a parking team of people with orange vests. We have great signage. We direct people to where they need to park. We have orange flags. So even at Mills High School, which there's plenty of parking, which has had soccer games and Relay for Life and everything. We've really tried to really communicate to our church members where to park. It's going to be busy. Make sure you're not parking on anyone's driveway. Those type of things. We'll continue to do that. And as you look at the conditions of approval, we have to continue to come up with another parking management strategy where we just continue to communicate to our church members the traffic laws, the speed laws, where to park, and we'll do all that through our website, through our newsletters, through our email, and through our publications. So we really feel like we'll be on top of that pretty well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Johnson.
I recall a number of years ago that we had, when the Chinese church applied, these same questions came up, and they were big, and the same issues were raised and concerns, and there was opportunity to look at it and study it and figure some things out. And I think that when I hear from the report that was presented that we don't necessarily have all of the options, that building doesn't belong to us, it belongs to a school district, there are some things in there are not within our control. On the other hand, we do have the opportunity to make things work. And I really like your suggestion about having it continued. I don't know if that's the right answer, but the thought to be able to study this, to be able to make this a win-win situation. I do believe that the opportunity of having, well, first let me address the fact that I recognize and appreciate the issues that were raised from the neighbors. I think they're valid. When their day-to-day lives are impacted, I think that it's really difficult to come home. I'm also married to someone who wants his parking place directly in front. On the other hand, you have to live there, and day to day it's difficult to address those issues. And when you have the issues with another organization on a day-to-day basis, you're getting the reciprocal of all of the other stuff. You're just sort of landing on you, and because that's how it is. However, we have to address those things. I think that the opportunity of having a new community up there, I think it's a great direction. And I believe that these situations can be mitigated in one particular way or another. I very much remember this conversation with the Chinese church. It was just a horrendous. The room was packed. There were lots of issues. The room was packed. And Commissioner Peterson raised the issue, why are more neighbors here? Yes, it is a warm day, but when you're passionate about a situation, you do show up. So it doesn't minimize the issue, I recognize Mrs. Jefferson's issues, and I have personally observed how make sure I say that correctly, CPC conducts their parking structures, and I have watched how they have the people on the streets and how they make things happen. And at all times, I don't know you personally, but I have watched these situations. Really, you make it work, and there's an issue, you come back, you bring it to your attention, and then there's a team of people who get back together and try to mitigate the whatever obstacles. It's unfortunate that we had another member of the public have to storm out that way. It just really disappoints me to have to not be able to figure out and excuse me, work together, and it doesn't make sense to that type of it's not useful. And so under my comments, I think what I'm trying to convey is that there is an opportunity to figure this out, and it may require more staff direction, looking at the plans a bit more, what other issues are there, without creating a huge financial hardship as well. So I wanted to make my comments on the fact that I have observed this particular church conduct business, parking and how they conduct their business, and it is very appropriate, professional, and willing to work with the community. And that's something that oftentimes doesn't get conveyed. May not know that. So I do appreciate the opportunity to hear your comments and hear the neighbors' comments and figure out steps to say, okay, how can we make this work and be successful at it?
I'd like to take a moment to take advantage of the fact we have parties in the room who have done a lot of study on this, and I see them making a lot of notes. I'd like to ask the community director if he has any observations about or suggestions at this time.
Sure. I mean, I think most of the issues that are coming out tonight, which you pointed out, Commissioner Johnson, are not really church-related, but they're existing conditions that are there in the neighborhood right now. So we have issues with AYSO soccer, parking infractions that are going on, speeding infractions that are going on, and those aren't related to the church. So it's difficult to solve an existing issue on a current application. Altogether, there's over probably 350 parking spaces on this site. So there is, in my professional opinion, plenty of parking on this site to accommodate the AYSO as well as the church. Now, Commissioner Marshall's idea to make it a dedicated parking lot within the basketball, I think that's something that we need to do and something that we need that we can add to the application tonight. If you were to move forward with the approval of the application tonight. I would also ask that we work with the church to continue to work on their parking management plan as things evolve and as they move in, to see if we need to tweak it at all. One positive part about having this application on the table is that it brings attention to the existing parking situation, the existing traffic situation that's out there, so that committees like our Traffic Safety and Parking Committee could take a look at this and see if there's any tweaks that we could do to the neighborhood in order to make it a better situation overall, regardless of this application. It'll bring it to the attention of our police chief that, hey, there could be a traffic situation, a parking violation situation that needs attention now, so there is more focus on there. So regarding this current application, our studies show that there is enough parking on here, so I wouldn't see that as a reason for further analysis, because I could see on there that there is enough parking. But what I think we would have to do is add Commissioner Marshall's suggested recommendation that we open up that basketball court, which has over 100 parking spaces in it, and dedicate that to the church, as well as find additional parking on site, like you said, I believe you said near the wood shop, where staff parking could happen. And we could work that out with the applicant on a staff basis to find the primary locations, if that's something that they would want to agree to.
Let me ask you one specific question. My sense is that the parking on the street happens because it's convenient. It's either good for a soccer person or a church person. It's obviously good for the neighbors who live there. No matter how much parking there is, if the closest parking that's convenient is on the street, people are going to use it. Isn't that part of the problem?
That's absolutely true.
So the only way you can try to cut that off is with local parking permits.
Correct. Correct. So that would be the only way. Anything that the church does could not solve that problem because
Right.
the people who are in the AYSO games aren't parking in the basketball courts, but they would be parking in the basketball courts if that was the closest place to the field. So I think that the goal would be to put them in the place where people aren't parking already, and that would be in the basketball courts. Now that's an existing situation. Lisa was telling me her daughter recently had a soccer tournament there and noticed that as well, that people parking a lot. I think Commissioner Chase was commenting on your daughter had practice there and did games there, and that's where people parked as well.
Right.
So that.
Okay, Commissioner Marshall.
I also like to add that it's going to help with the traffic in that lot too, because the west side of the basketball court, there's actually a gate that opens up to the western road of Crestmore High School or Peninsula High School, and so you don't even have to jump a curb over there. So your traffic people can direct them out that way. And that's going to be easier to go at Piedmont for people anyway. So it can help them both ways.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Biassatti.
Being the old retired guy in the committee, I had the luxury of actually reading the entire report, and I find it consistent. You know, one of the questions before us tonight is whether or not the environmental impact report is consistent and what the applicants are proposing with the congregation that they have. I can see that the number of trips that are listed in here is consistent. So I would like to say for the record that, that is a consistent item. What I think I would like to see this evening is perhaps maybe we can approve this and leave the parking consideration to the community development director to take care of, as it, because this is going to fluctuate as this apartment building gets finished, as soccer season comes and goes. If there's neighborhood problems, we could certainly have staff take care of that, and because we're looking at hitting a moving target, and nothing we do tonight is going to settle that. So I see no reason not to move ahead and leave the parking considerations to staff to take care of.
Oh, through the chair?
Commissioner Chase.
Just in comment to that, I don't want to put any additional burden on staff. I think we need to nail it down pretty well personally, so that at least the direction is there, if that's the direction that the commission decides to go in, as far as, saying it's going to be in the community development director's lap, so to speak, with the fluctuation in the seasons of the parking and all that. But I think we should certainly have it dialed in as closely as we can, if indeed we have some sort of, movement on this item.
Commissioner Mishra.
I would just like to echo Aaron and Commissioner Biassatti's sentiments on this issue. What we have in front of us is a poor site design, as you pointed out. The issues brought up, the remedies that we've discussed, and the remedies that Aaron has brought up, it does put a lot of solutions in the city's spotlight. They have to take care of things. The police department needs to step up and take care of those situations. Those are not things we're going to mandate as part of this application. This application is pretty clear cut. There is a negative declaration. It is consistent with forgetting what existing conditions exist. I feel that with the Commissioner Marshall's suggestion of converting the basketball court actually resolves the issue of parking for this application. There's a larger issue at hand which the city staff has to deal with. And as part of this application, we should forward it to them and let them take care of it. Because resolving it here as part of this application is actually hurting this application and its ability to stand alone by itself.
Were you making a motion?
I guess I am.
Through the chair? If he's making, okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Could we wait and see
Sure.
what
By
the
all
motion
means.
is?
I would recommend that the Planning Commission approve use permit 11-012 based on findings of fact 1 through 3 and conditions of approval 1 through 8, adding an additional condition of approval to convert the basketball court to additional parking as per
Through the chair.
Commissioner Marshall.
I mean, if you would
Well, wait,
amend
wait,
I'm asking you to amend the motion before I second it to just revise conditions 6 and 8 as I mentioned. I think that we don't need to add another one, just revise 6 and 8.
And also, there's four findings of fact.
Negative
But,
declaration.
And I'd like to, as a point of information, do we have to do the negative declaration before the action on the item,
Correct.
right? Okay, so I'd like to ask the motion maker, will you be willing to hold your motion in advance while we go on to the negative deck?
Yes, sir.
Okay, could someone make a motion on the negative declaration?
Sure, through the chair, I'll make a motion, we adopt the negative declaration. Yeah.
Fine, is there a second?
Second?
Okay. Is this a roll call? No? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And I think there's a 10-day appeal period on that.
Correct.
Okay, now we're back to bring the motion, Mishra's motion back into play. There's a motion and a second.
Wait a minute, was the motion
But
amended?
let's make sure we have it stated correctly. Who's gonna state it?
If we just withdraw all that, I would like to make a motion, we approve use permit 11012, findings fact 1 through 4, and conditions of approval 1 through 8 with the amended 6 and 8. Aaron, you know the amendments or the changes?
Somebody please repeat number 6.
6 should be the parking manager strategy shall prohibit parking in parking lot 1 adjacent to athletic fields. This shall be reserved for people using athletic fields. Church parking shall be allowed to the southern, or should not be allowed to southern lots of 1. So just in lots 2 and 3, and possibly any additional parking lots at the site. And line item 8 should be at all times. The applicant shall direct church members to use the basketball courts, and not as overflow parking, just as parking.
Second.
Okay,
wait,
that's
wait.
a substitute motion and a second. Now a discussion on the motion.
Could we add one more thing and then request the church to utilize the Piedmont side of the entrance to the property?
Yeah.
Can we include that in there?
And we can probably include that in item 6, and also to encourage traffic.
Thank you.
Okay,
Actually-
does the seconder accept that?
Yes.
Okay, now we have a motion and a second.
On the question.
And, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Before there's a vote, perhaps we should ask the applicants if they agree with those conditions or not.
Well, they were all
Is
nodding,
there
they were
a
nodding their
commi-
heads yes as I was saying it, so I think they're
Is
okay.
there,
Okay, well, that wasn't on the record, so that's why we're
Is there a
asking.
member of the commission who would like to ask the
Through the chair?
applicant?
Applicant, do you approve these changes we made to your?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now on the question.
Commissioner
Is it
Chase.
gonna be, yeah, I understand what the additions are, what the amendments are and all that, but can we have them clearly and concisely read back? Because I don't really feel like voting on something that I might
I
not
just
be.
read it word for word.
Word for word? So
Yes.
basically then what you're doing is you're striking out completely 8 and putting in at all times. So there's gonna be a complete
No.
revision of number 8, basically.
No, just
Would
the
you like me
first
to
line.
read the conditions?
Please.
Would you please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Modified condition 6. The parking management strategy shall prohibit parking in parking lot 1 adjacent to the athletic field. This row shall be reserved for people using the athletic field, as well as parking lot 2 and 3. That's it. New condition 8. At all times, parking attendants shall direct churchgoers to the basketball courts as overflow parking. The applicant shall coordinate with AYSO on the schedule. I don't know that we need that. The applicant shall provide a parking attendant when the basketball courts are unused, so at all times. And then we're adding, to the end of condition 6, request the church utilize Piedmont access to and from the site.
And through the
Okay,
chair,
through-
also strike the word overflow from parking, because it wouldn't be overflow, it's just a regular parking.
Yes, as regular parking.
And then just one question on number 6. You mentioned lot 1 and 2, but to me, I'm not really clear as the way you read that. At least it sounded as if that was going to be restricted from the church parking.
Correct. The church cannot utilize parking lots 1 and 2. They will be restricted for athletic field use only. And that's as referenced in Exhibit A.
You
No,
don't mean
just
parking lots
parking
1
lot
and
1,
2.
just parking lot 1.
Right.
Oh, parking lot 1, excuse me.
2 and 3 are available for the church.
Thank you.
Through the chair,
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
I just want to clarify on that parking. If there isn't a sports activity, does that mean that they're still not able to use it?
Unless they get caught.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is you always direct, basketball courts are always going to be their number one parking lot, so that's where everyone should always go, and then on to two, and then on to two. That should accommodate everyone, because the number of parking is about 160 spaces or so, and there's enough between those two that will accommodate that, so it'll be unnecessary to go in parking lot one. That said, if no one's there, I mean, people are free to park in it, but.
Well, I think that when we say never, and I think when we're
Yeah.
talking about a church who's accountable, and that never is never, and it doesn't feel good to sort of wonder if you could or couldn't. So I just wanted to, to really ask that question, because it is about being accountable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to word it and saying during athletic events or other events being held on the field, but I would still, be most comfortable that their priority be to first park within the basketball courts, then go to number 2 and only park in number 1 if no other events are occurring at Crestmore High School.
so if that language could be clarified in there, that would be useful. Because if there is an overflow, the one thing that I do know in a church is that they do want to grow, and they do want to serve more people. And so we want to be sure that it's not being set up for failure. On the other hand, we also want to be sensitive and thoughtful and respectful of our neighbors. So it's not an easy balance, but it is a reality. So I just want to be sure that the language accommodates, you can't always have exactly it, but
Yeah.
Through the chair, my
Commissioner
motion, I
Marshall.
still like it to read at all times, and if it comes to a point where they grow and they need more, they can always come back.
And the second thing is they're limited by the capacity of the theater itself. So the capacity of the theater is 390. They have about 350 right now, so there really won't be that much growth. If they were to grow beyond this, my guess is that it would be adding an additional service or finding another venue. So just the ratio of the number of people held within the theater compared to the number of parking really isn't going to change much. So I don't think there ever is going to be anything necessary to do parking lot 1, because I think it'll just be a division of services, if anything.
and typically when a church grows, that's exactly what happens,
Yeah.
that there is another service. And I was going to ask the questions about hours, but I'll hold that.
Are there any commissioners that have any question about the content of the motion? Are there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Unanimous, and there's a 10-day appeal period. You're welcome.